Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of Dystopedia. I'm your host Matt Davison, and once again I'm joined by my colleague Andrew Hodgson.
How are you, Matt?
Yeah, pretty good. Andrew, how'd you plop after last week?
What, the episode of Kasabian?
Both.
Yeah, mate, I told you, didn't I? Like, if the energy's half as good as it was in 2010, you're for some night, but fuck me.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was the same as it was.
Yeah, I was going and thinking just to be like, oh, well, yeah, a bit of a mosh pit. You know, like every casual kind of rock band has their mosh pits, but then, holy shit, it was next level. It was like a football crowd, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And no gig, any gig you go to will always be rated on that one. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's the benchmark now. So,
yeah.
I've been in a couple of mosh pits where they've been like rowdy, but that was next level rowdy. That was good fun.
Yeah, my body gave up like three quarters through, would you say?
Yeah, I think you went too hard on that third song, was it? That one that really got you. You were doing the mosh, you were doing the death thing, you know, the spiral, what was it?
Vlad the Impaler.
Vlad the Impaler, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that drained your energy.
It did. I don't know if it's just the fitness levels or God, I don't know how busy I had. You came back with like 4 of them, didn't you?
Yeah,
that happened at least twice.
I did, yeah. Well, I was gone for about half an hour in the bloody queue.
Yeah, that was it was something like that. But
just another thing on that too, like being post 30, it takes you a couple of days to recover now. Like I didn't get back to like normal levels till Tuesday. And we were on a Saturday night, so like I remember even on Monday I was in the office at work and I just turn around. I'm like, oh, my head's starting to spin still. I'm like,
ears still ringing and yeah.
Yeah, it took a good 24 hours to ring to get out of the ear.
Yeah, that's how it should be, mate.
As is, yeah. I guess another thing too, obviously last week's episode with Akira, like I ended up going on the Akira rabbit hole even further. I was picking up my car from the station and walked past the bookstore and I saw it there in the manga section. I'm like, oh, do I buy it or not buy it? I'm like, stuff it, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just ended up reading it, finished it in about 2 days or so, a couple sessions, and then I was like, went on Amazon and saw there's a sale on. I'm like, do I do it? Do I buy the next file? I'm like, stuff it.
The seed's already been planted.
It got planted, yeah. It must be done, so.
Must.
Exactly, yeah. But interesting on that, just before we go into today's episode, I couldn't believe how much of a difference there is in the manga for Akira compared to the movie. There's actually some major changes, and I can see why they made those changes, considering where it was in the culture at the time. So the manga's a lot more dark and has like drug influences as well. That's part of it. So. Okay. And yeah, Kaneda is a lot more aggressive too, which I found was like, oh, that's a bit
different from his character.
Yeah. Like there's one part where the Espers are, and then he wants to kick one of them, like as a punishment. I'm like, oh, geez, this is not the Kaneda from the film, but yeah, it's interesting.
Maybe somewhere down the line, when we run out of ideas, we can do a comparison between the manga and the film or something.
Yeah, maybe down the track of. Even if we get a Patreon or something, who knows? I'm not putting the cart ahead of the horse though.
Oh, mate, that's NordVPN will sponsor us then.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm hoping for Manscaped, mate.
Oh, yeah?
Get a bit hairy now. So.
Oh, what about BetterHelp?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, is that a bit controversial?
No, you don't want to get them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely not BetterHelp. Maybe I'm willing to shill for Raid Shadow Legends like all the other gamer YouTubers did for a while there.
Yeah. And then you know you've made it. Yeah.
Sorry, speaking of shilling, what are we drinking today?
Oh, Cooper's Brewery's Australian lager.
Very, very timely too, with all the tariff situations going around the world with Trump. So
we're piss a few people off here.
Oh, we are. No, we're going 100% Aussie made drinking. You know, support the home country.
We've got a few American listeners here. I don't know if they're going to like that.
No, you never know what side of the fence they're on. You never know.
Yeah.
See how it goes. Well, all right. Well, that's enough rambling and getting into what happened the past week or so, and we'll get into the crux of this episode, which is the famous 1997 film Starship Troopers.
And what a film!
What a film it is. When did you first come across this film?
My earliest memory of this, it would have been, so I think it came out in 1997, but in Australia, I think the start of February in 1998. So my birthday's in February.
Mine too, as well.
Yeah, 25th of February. If anyone's wondering,
I'll keep the mystery alive. I'm not going to reveal mine.
Yeah, but I can remember all I can remember is the poster. You know the poster when it's got like all like the people in the the helmets or like jar heads, I suppose, and they've got like there's like explosions in the background and people screaming. I'm like, oh, fucking.
You'd have to say it's probably one of the best movie posters ever. It just draws your attention when you see it.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Yeah.
But on the surface, it looks like every other action blockbuster from the 90s, but as we'll get into in this episode, far from it. I remember wanting to go and see this. I remember like for my birthday, for like my 7th birthday, we went to the movies, and like that's the one we wanted to see. Me and a few mates or something. My dad took us. My dad's not really got any imagination. He's not really into films or anything. And he took us, and then we ended up like not seeing that movie. And he's like, "Oh, we went to see As Good as It Gets." It's like Jack Nicholson in it.
Oh, is that one where he's like got split personality disorder or something like that? Or he's got like little tics and quirks and stuff?
Yeah, it might be. Anyway, but in my dad's mind, he's like, "Oh, they wanted to go and see a movie. I'll just take them to see that." Like, I'm like, yeah, but it's not. Like it's like if I wanted to go and see Liverpool and you took me to see fucking Plymouth Argyle or something. It's not the same, you know.
Especially when you're 7 years old, 8 years old. Like, oh no.
And then I remember my want to see it just went up more, and I must have seen it on.
Oh, it's kind of like a bit of like the forbidden fruit or something.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
When you're younger too, you kind of like that. When you wanted something so bad, like you couldn't control those impulses. Where you're like, I need to get this game, or I need to get to see this film.
Yeah. I remember a few years later, I must have watched it on video or something. But was blown away. But it was the action scenes, you know.
Just to say, that's pretty cool that your dad took you. I think the movie's rated MA here, so just for a reference, MA in Australia means you have to be 15 years or older to watch it, unless you got a parent with you. So that's pretty cool that your dad took you to see that.
Yeah. But anyway, but we didn't. We went to see As Good as It Gets, and
clearly that left an impression on you.
Never seen the movie.
Man, you good actor Jack Nicholson, but jeez,
he might have won an award for it. I don't know.
I think he did actually win an Academy Award for that one.
Yeah, okay. Memory. I'll probably never see it because.
Just before we get into it, I remember watching that film and thinking, he won an Academy Award for this. It must be really good. I remember watching it like, it's all right, but just, I guess it goes with the times that was the 90s where things like that were considered like masterpieces and piece of art, and less cynical times here.
Less cynical time, yeah. What's your first memories of this one?
Actually, it takes me back to when, and this might sound a bit depressing, but it was when my parents got divorced and were separated. And my mum and my sister, we moved to a different place, but my dad then lent out rooms in the house to have roommates and stuff like that. So one of the roommates his name was Luke. He was a big adult kid. He was like 30, but had the mentality of a 12-year-old. He was a great bloke. Yeah. But he had this in the main living area. He had a VHS cabinet, all like VHS, like all the different types of videos. They had like Red and Stimpy and all James Bond movies, like even like the GoldenEye all the way. Dr. No all the way to GoldenEye at that stage, which would be the latest one. Yeah, and I remember one time he pulled out Starship Troopers out, and I remember seeing that iconic cover and being like, as you said, like something about it just drew you to it. And he had a son as well, and we both watched it together. But I don't really remember it when I was a kid. I remembered flashes of it. I remember the propaganda stuff. I remember the kids stamping on the bugs.
Yeah.
I remember the scene where Johnny Rico gets whipped, and when the other training simulations where he gets that guy killed by mistake.
Yeah.
I remember that stuff, and then kind of just faded away after that. I think later in life, I grew up it was the Terminators and your Matrixes and things like that. But I think it was around when I was a teenager. I got you had a part-time job at Discovery income, and I went to JB Hi-Fi and bought the DVD and watched it again. And then that's when I was like, this movie's awesome, but more from the action scenes as opposed to the political undertones to it. But that's my first time of seeing it. Yeah, when I was like 7 years old at my dad's place with his mates, and I had no idea what was going on. It looked cool to me.
Yeah, it really did look cool. Yeah, great film.
So before we get into the synopsis and the plot of the film, I think we should do what we always do and go through the backstory and the director and why he picked this film and things like that. So So the director is Paul Verhoeven. Is that how he's
Verhoeven? Yes.
Verhoeven, yeah. So he was he's from the Netherlands, born during
1938. He was born.
So he would have grown up under Nazi rule there, right? As a young kid.
Yeah. It's really interesting. There was a couple of interviews I watched him before this film. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, we'll go through his life and everything.
Well, yeah. So the original film or the original concept of Starship Troopers was a book, right? Came out in 1958, 1959.
Yes. A fella by the name of Richard Heinlein. Richard Heinlein. So he had written it in 1959.
I know you've read a bit of the book, and it's quite different to the film, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in terms like the basic story is the same. It follows Johnny Rico, him joining the army, and then the the wars, I guess, are sort of the same, the battles.
And they call the Roughnecks in that, aren't they?
Razik's Roughnecks in that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more of an internal monologue and him questioning, I guess, what's going on. And like half the book, even a good 3/4 of the book, he's in boot camp. It's like really like the day-to-day life of a soldier.
Oh, interesting.
Which is like, I guess, both good and bad. But the Richard Hyman was actually he served in the Navy, so he kind of that was like his experience. So it was like it's kind of polarizing. A lot of people see it as like a very promoting fascist ideals and a bit, I don't want to use the word problematic, but maybe problematic in the time that it came out.
Yeah, it was around the Red Scare. Like it seems like a lot of the stuff we do is around the Red Scare that's come out recently, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when we first looked at the introductory episode, looking at the definition term of dystopia, it sort of, I think it came into the dictionary around that time, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So I mean, it's definitely a big influence on it. But look, there's a lot of things. It's a good book. It can be a bit preachy. It's almost like a bit of an anti-communist manifesto. But again, when you look at the time it came out, is that any surprise? You know?
No, definitely. Yeah. From what I can gather too, from what I've done a bit of research on him, he even thought like Eisenhower wasn't strong enough on it and stuff. He's like, oh, that's a bit. Come on, man! Like he was the one that was promoting this stuff, you know? Like
yeah. He was a little bit. He chopped and changed with his politics, so he was quite left-leaning until it seemed the atomic age started, and then he sort of saw the need for like a strong government or a strongman leader in, I guess, this new world of like mutually assured destruction. In a little bit of research I did, so there's a little bit of talk of that. There's a little bit of this in the book as well.
Yeah.
That he talks about, but he also there's themes of like I guess corporal punishment. So not capital punishment, but corporal punishment. Like, I guess kids just not being hit anymore and being no discipline in society. So he was really worried like the world was changing and people were, oh no, you can't hit your kids, and people, oh, it does psychological damage, and then people were moving away from conscription and that sort of thing.
Becoming like a softer society, right?
Yeah, he saw, so it's almost a response to that. So look, I don't think, he definitely gets accused of being a fascist. Reading the book, I don't think he was, but I think it's like worst case scenario if we don't get this right, then we're susceptible to this sort of government kind of thing. That's the way I see it. You know?
I guess too at that time as well, he would have seen the way the propaganda as well that Russia, all this well-oiled drilled machine chugging along, making things bigger and better for their society, and there's not a weak communist around. They're all strong. They're all willing to destroy us all. So he gets probably see like a bit of like relaxation and like the society was going to be more like pleasure and focusing on things that weren't that important, he considered important. So maybe keep him tough and keep him rough and keep him strong for to take on the Russian Empire, right? Well, sorry, the Communist Empire.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you look at even the arachnids or the bugs in the book where they're hive-minded and they all work in unison and all that thing. It's communism, right?
Yeah, of course.
But it's a communism that would probably work. It doesn't work in human nature, but for insects and stuff, probably would. Yeah,
they're working to a common goal, aren't they?
Yeah, hive-minded, all that sort of thing. So, you don't have to jump too far to see what that analogy's talking about,
Yeah, exactly.
It's not exactly subtle. But look, we're talking about the movie, but, we can't really bring Paul Verhoeven into it without talking about
the book. Because that was a direct correlation, because he read the book and didn't like it.
He read 2 chapters and hated it.
Yeah.
Look, fair enough. It definitely wasn't the easiest read. But yeah, he thought he was a fascist, basically, and obviously, as we've established, he grew up in Nazi-occupied Holland, and he saw some things as a kid. He saw. I was reading. His house was actually near a site where they had V1 and V2 rocket launchers.
Oh, interesting.
And the Allies bombed the shit out of it. So he saw a lot of destruction. He saw bodies on the street. He saw burning buildings.
Well, you can kind of see the visual effects in the movie of that. When you see the same thing, we see that the aliens and all the bugs and the human bodies everywhere scattered like that. Yeah. It was very graphic. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny. He also mentioned that like he saw it as like a big adventure as a kid. You know what I mean? Like,
I guess 38, so he would have been like 4 or 5 at the time, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Yeah, like you wouldn't fully comprehend what was going on. You know there's good and bad, but not you just think, we're moving around and doing little things here and there. Nothing like, you wouldn't understand the full magnitude of what was going on.
Yeah, that's right. Nah, he's I really like reading some of the interviews and stuff with him, and watching a few of it. He's really interesting bloke. Like, he's talking about how like critically panned the movie was. in America particularly with the they would look, they just wrote as, no, it must be anyone who wrote this is a Nazi and have not, they're Nazi sympathizers. And I think like Roger Ebert was sort of saying, like, he didn't quite go as far as saying some Nazi, but he just wrote it off as like some every other blockbuster.
Yeah.
There was a few, I think Variety, New York Times actually just, they again wrote it off as that, and I think they accused them of sort of Nazi ideals.
Missing the point completely.
Completely missing the point. The only one I think that really got it was like Variety. They kind of gave it the credit it deserved, but a little bit of the satire was like lost on them. But listening to Paul Verhoeven, he was like, he's really interesting, real ballsy in the sense, like, can you think of another director that's actually outright just taken the book and just taken the piss out of the source material? It's so ballsy,
Oh, yeah. Most of the time when you see an adapted, book, screenplay, or whatever it is, it's always like praising it or, trying to make it more grand on a different scale. Or they'll take the basic premise, but there's still like love for the material, I guess, or like praise for it. But this is like, this is basically a piece of shit. I'm gonna shit on it and take the piss out of it.
Yeah. He just turns it up to 11. Like with the the aesthetics, the Nazi uniforms and the propaganda and the.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking the not at the time the 90s visuals and then implement it into like this ultra futuristic society with all the you said like the propaganda and the spin and the talk and things like that. So
yeah,
just before we go into the plot as well and the synopsis, I was just reading before just some of the other films he's directed. It's pretty impressive resume he's got. Yeah. So he did the original RoboCop back in 1987.
What a film!
And that's a great film. Great, another dystopian film on the list down the track as well. Keep that in your logbooks. He did Basic Instinct with that's Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone, famous cross-leg scene.
Yes.
Bit of an erotic thriller, that one. Not very dystopian, though, unfortunately, so we can't go into that. I watched that movie just for the plot as well.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Paying my appreciations to the arts. And another famous, who actually has the actors in it, some of the actors in it too, is Total Recall.
Oh.
And that's dystopian too, so we could add that to the list.
Are we original or remake with remake with Colin Farrell?
Yeah, Colin Farrell, mate. Yeah. Well, so, it's like, and some of the actors you saw, was it the bad guy? He plays this like the sergeant in Starship Troopers, the teacher.
Oh, Michael Ironside?
Yeah, Ironside, yeah. He's a good actor, I like him. Yeah. And apparently there's a little Easter egg, because you know how he loses his hand, or his arm in the elevator scene in Total Recall?
Yeah.
And he's got no arm in the first movie. They reckon that's like a little like homage to Total Recall.
Are they saying it's in the same universe?
Yes, or could be, I don't know, but yeah. Maybe another dimension or something, yeah.
There'll be a video on that. There'll be a YouTube video on that.
Some rabbit hole, yeah. Like, did you know? Yeah. I was reading too, apparently one of the set designs, like it looks really amazing, like some of the starships and stuff. It's got CGI, but a lot of designs,
a lot of visual effects.
A lot of visual effects, yeah. But I was reading that one of them did Star Wars, so he designed like the Imperial starships and the Millennium Falcon. And apparently, on one of the scenes where the ship is flying, on where the radio tower is, you can see like a miniature Millennium Falcon on the back of it.
Oh, really?
It's like you remember the movie where they get onto the back of it in Empire Strikes Back, where they're trying to get chucked away with the rubbish.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see it on the back there, a little Easter egg as well, which I thought was really cool.
I missed that.
Yeah, I saw it on one of those rabbit hole videos on YouTube. I'm like, oh, that's so sick. Yeah. Another thing too I found really funny. He's one of the only directors to accept a Golden Raspberry Award. So a Golden Raspberry Award is for like worst film, worst director.
So he did it in person.
He went in person and accepted the award. What a legend. I admire people that can see the humour in it. They're not like up their own arse.
What did he get it for?
It was for Showgirls in 1995. So he won 7 Golden Raspberry Awards, including Worst Film and Worst Director, and he was one of the first people to accept it in person. So at least he had a sense of humour. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I think he often made films that were quite provocative for the time and like pushed a lot of things and taboos, and they were always sort of misunderstood. Yeah, and this one being no different. Yeah,
like it seems he does like a variety of movies. So he doesn't stick to one lane. He'll go like futuristic sci-fi, but then also go something like a Showgirls, which is very erotic and thriller kind of way as well. Like he seems to like not be afraid to take a risk.
Yeah, I got a lot of time for that.
Yeah. He's not like Michael Bay, he sticks to his one thing and that's it.
Oh, didn't you say anything about Michael Bay?
Mate, I'm sorry, that's a bit busted me, sorry. Yes.
All right. Let's get into the plot then, eh?
Yeah,
we'll start there. We'll get into some of the themes.
Straight to the meat of potatoes, mate.
Yeah, that's it. All right. So, the plot. In the future, Earth is governed by the United Citizen Federation. a stratocratic regime founded by generations earlier by veterans after democracy and social scientists brought civilization to the brink of ruin. Citizenship is exclusively earned through federal service, which grants rights like voting and procreation that are withheld from ordinary civilians. Humans who are now capable of interstellar travel conduct colonization missions throughout the galaxy, bringing them into conflict with a race of highly evolved insectoid creatures dubbed arachnids, or derisively bugs. Against his parents' objections, teenage jock Johnny Rico enlists as a mobile infantryman to remain close to his girlfriend, spaceship pilot Carmen Ibanez. Their psychic friend Carl Jenkins joins military intelligence, while Isabel Dizzy Flores, who is in love with Rico, deliberately transfers to his squad. Carmen ends a relationship with Rico due to their diverging career paths and her growing feelings for a fellow pilot, Xander Barcalo. During training, Rico impresses his drill sergeant, Zim, earning a promotion to squad leader. However, Rico makes a mistake during a training exercise which leads to the death of a squad member and the resignation of another, resulting in Rico's demotion and flogging. Disheartened, Rico quits, but re-enlists after learning that an asteroid sent by the arachnids has destroyed Buenos Aires, killing millions, including his parents. The invasion force is deployed to Klendathu, the arachnids' home planet, but military intelligence underestimates the arachnids' defensive abilities, leading to thousands of human casualties. Badly wounded, Rico is rescued by Lieutenant Jean Razchek, his former high school teacher, but is mistakenly reported dead, devastating Carmen. Following his recovery, Rico, Dizzy, and squadmate Ace Levy join Razchek's elite unit, the Roughnecks. After Rico defeats a gigantic tanker bug on the disputed planet of Tango Urilla, he is elevated to the rank of corporal for his valor and begins a romantic relationship with Dizzy. Responding to a distress signal on the arachnid-controlled planet P, the Roughnecks discover an arachnid-ravaged outpost and are ambushed by the bugs. Carmen and Xander recover the surviving Roughnecks by dropship, but not before Dizzy is fatally impaled by an arachnid and Rico mercy kills the mutilated Razchek. The group returns to the fleet assembled in orbit above P, where Dizzy is eulogized. Jenkins, now a colonel, reveals the Roughnecks were deliberately ordered into the trap, justifying it as a necessary sacrifice to confirm the existence of a brain bug, an intelligent arachnid strategically directing the others. He assigns Rico command of the Roughnecks and field promotes him to lieutenant, instructing him to return to P and capture the brain bug. As the battle commences, Carmen's ship is destroyed by the arachnids, but an escape pod carrying her and Xander crashes into an underground tunnel system. The pair are captured by the arachnids and the brain bug consumes Xander's brain, absorbing his knowledge. Rico directs his squad to complete their mission while he, Ace, and their squadmate Watkins rescue Carmen and hold the arachnids at bay with a miniature nuclear bomb. The brain bug escapes while the arachnids attack and fatally wound Watkins, who sacrifices himself by detonating the bomb while his teammates escape. On the surface, they learn that Zim has captured the brain bug, and the assembled troops rejoice as Jenkins psychically detects it is afraid. A propaganda broadcast details how the brain bug is being invasively studied to learn its secrets and ensure humanity's victory. The ad encourages viewers to enlist and do their part in the war so they can become like Carmen, now captain of her own ship, and Rico, who enthusiastically leads his troops into another battle.
Yeah, wow. Well, Johnny Rico certainly did his part, didn't he?
He did do his part, yeah. Would you like to know more?
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we get into it? Yeah, like just before we get into the dystopian themes and the plot and things like that, there's, I guess, on the surface, we said earlier, you just think it's like this action flick, 90s thriller, high school football at the start of the movie, things like that. But there's actually there's a lot more depth to it, a lot more nuance, a lot more a lot more parody and social commentary and things. Yeah,
and watching it through 2025 lens, it's
dated well, hasn't it?
It really has, and it sort of got me thinking. I was having a look at some of the things that were happening in 1997 that might have led to it being critically panned, and one of the reasons, we mentioned Michael Bay and that before. I think there was this real blockbuster culture. You think things of The Rock,
Independence Day, probably True Lies, things like that. That kind of these big action blockbuster movies that took themselves really seriously. And that, I guess, we talk about the poster. People were probably expecting that with this. And I don't want to think. It really made you think about it. I was just going to grab a list of the top grossing films of 1997. So, what do you reckon number one is for 1997?
Oh. Independence Day?
No, I think that was 96, but Titanic. So you think like that was remember how like that was one of the all-time greatest movies right at the time, like considered like groundbreaking. Then you got Jurassic Park, Lost World, Men in Black, Tomorrow Never Dies, Air Force. Yes, as it's all saying, and then Liar Liar. So you're getting those kind of movies that's action-packed, thrillers, bit of comedies as well. Nothing real satire or social commentary type of films.
Out of all of them, I'd say this one's aged the best.
Yeah, definitely. Titanic. It is a great film, but it's one of those. It's a romantic film, isn't it? So it's for the ladies out there, you know. Like, I've never been a big fan of Men in Black or Jurassic Park either. I think they're a bit overrated, but I guess Jurassic Park is more about the special effects. Where I think too, just as well, like the special effects for '97, that must have been groundbreaking. That Starship Troopers. It even looks good now.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because I find there was a mix of CGI and visual effects, so they didn't completely rely on CGI, which is why it's probably aged really well.
It's a great mix of both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were you saying before we went into the side story? Yeah.
Look, I think it's important with this one to actually talk about why this is actually a dystopian film, because it's portrayed as like almost a fascist utopia, which is kind of a dystopia. Well, it is a dystopia. So really, like the themes of it, you know, obviously the fascist aesthetic. I mean, the biggest thing is the uniforms, right? You don't really have to look.
When you see Neil Patrick Harris walk out, you're like, oh, come on, they're not trying to hide it anymore.
You know what's funny? I was listening to the writer of it, whose name actually escapes me at the moment, but he actually mentioned that Paul Verhoeven, actually, when he was talking about it, he said like he always wanted to make a film that was like, oh, it's 1935 in Germany and it's all exciting and everything's looking up and everyone's joining the Nazi party and we're all going and everything's like optimistic, but like before they knew that they were the bad guys. And he was saying like, oh look, Hollywood will never let you do that.
Oh, absolutely not, no.
But he said, but then he said like, but if we did it in a science fiction film, you can kind of push the boundaries.
Yeah,
and you know when like Neil Patrick Harris, what's his name in the movie?
Carl.
Yeah, when Carl walks out of the lift that he's in, like quite clearly the SS uniform. Apparently he wasn't meant to be in it, but they're like, because they thought he was meant to come through his speech, so it was a nod to that. His speech was talking about like, no, you were, it was for the betterment of the species. That's why it was a necessary loss that you guys went there, because we need to lure the brain bug out to learn for our species. That real fascistic sort of talk.
Yeah.
The betterment of the species, the betterment of the Aryan race. You know, if we say that.
Yeah, the undertones to it. Yeah.
Yeah. But they thought, no, it's not enough. So they gave him the uniform, and apparently, like a lot of people they hated it. They didn't like it. Like, oh, we thought this is a fun action movie and sort of thing. We didn't think, oh, why have you got this? It completely missed the point.
Yeah.
Where I think it's brilliant. But anyway, I just thought I'd add that in there, you know?
No, definitely. I think it adds to it, because it's like making a mockery of like ultra patriotic societies and militaristic, you know, based societies as well. Like it's just absolutely showing what happens when, you know, these ideas and thoughts aren't really challenged, and it goes on this level, and how it manipulates the society, and they're all bound together by one common goal and one common enemy. You know, it's got. I found it had a lot of 1984 aspects into it too, where
it did. Yeah,
you didn't know why the Rathians were the enemy. They are for wherever they are, and they're attacking us. Then we've got to fight them. We've got to band together. There's no end date for this.
This is perpetual war. It's a militarized society. We need an enemy.
Yeah, keep that cog of the machines. Keep it turning. Keep moving. It's all keeps focusing on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought. Sorry, we'll actually get into the things. We're a little bit off track, but I think it's important to say what was kind of cool in the way he picked the cast, and there was a bit of character development. And you really felt kind of attached to these characters, but they're all quite likable.
Oh, absolutely.
And it made you you follow him in the battle, and you're like, yeah, if I can get in there, Johnny's son, and he's he jumps on the big bug, and he's a bit reckless, but by God, he gets the job done.
He did very much so. Took that risk, but it paid off big time for him. No, what I like too, because when you're in the army camp, and you know that scene where Gary Busey's son, Jack Busey, that's it. I was thinking Gary Busey, but. He's like cutting the line. You think there's gonna be some big confrontation where it's like, I'm the
big dog.
Yeah, I'm the big dog. Yeah. You rich guy. You think you're better than us, but then they're becoming mates, and then you get an attachment and affinity with him. It's like, you're all right.
Tattoos and
tattoos. It's so cool. Like it's had that I guess it is a kind of a cynical film, but then it's also got that old school '90s where everyone's like mates and stuff, and there's there's no real hidden agendas amongst the characters. Really, they're all believing. I guess because they're all believing in the propaganda, they're all believing in the society they're in.
Well, they're all quite likable, and it shows. Talking about Germany in 1935, the film he was trying to make, they're all just. I think it shows how easily a society can just fall into it, and these are all likable characters, but it just shows how easily it is to just get caught up in this sort of be a cog in this kind of endless war machine. You know?
And then if
it can happen to anyone.
Yeah, and if your life's like fine the way it is, why would you challenge it? Why would you think anything's wrong with it? Because I'm prospering, I'm doing well, so maybe some people aren't doing as well, but who cares about them? Well, the film does have like slight little like where you see like protesters in the background, or like little plots here and there where you're seeing people like protest and question the society, but then they get shut down, or they're found guilty of a crime and then executed within 24 hours and stuff. So so it kind of like allows a little bit of that aspect into it, but most of like 99% of the population seem to be really buying into it and believe in the society they're in. Yeah,
and that's where like the dystopian themes in this. So it's like the indoctrination through the newsreels. Like, would you like to know more segments? The militarized state. The limited civil liberties that you see, where like it's quite clearly mentioned in the thing, like, the only way to get citizenship is to serve. So, if you don't serve, you're not a citizen. So you can't vote, you can't run for political office, you can't have kids, all that sort of stuff. So it's like
it's very controlled that way.
Yeah, too, it's like presented as like a democracy, but you're sort of coerced into
thinking, you got to jump through all these hoops to get to this level, basically. Yeah, it's a bit like Scientology in a way, isn't it?
Well, sort of.
Yeah,
I mean, piss off. Sorry, I'm gonna
get Tom Cruise on us, mate.
Yeah. Look, we went a bit off topic, but I just thought it's probably interesting to explain why it's dystopian, because the movie's definitely not framed like that, but that's on purpose, because it shows you that.
It lures you into this false sense of security, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Hang on, am I wanting this authoritarian militaristic state to do well? And the arachnids are probably the victims, I'd
argue they are the victims in a lot of instances, because all they're doing is defending their territory.
Yeah, and they're just like completely dehumanized, and they're just brutal. They're animals. All they want to do, all they exist for.
Worse than animals, aren't they? They're just parasites, really, aren't they? They're going to be wiped out.
Yeah. But there's no reason for it. There's no like talk of peace or anything. It's like they're going to be wiped out. We've got to be the dominant species,
I was just say that those Rathian the soldier bugs, where they are freaky. I remember being a kid being scared by them. They're just so like when they come at them like with their spiky legs and stab people. Oh, it's intense.
There's one on the the original landing, the first landing on Clondathu. Fuck, what a scene. The music's going, everyone's running to the ships. Oh, fucking! That's where I'm at my point of like, go on, son, go on, Johnny, son.
Get the job done, boys. Get in there. Yeah.
that's like the crescendo of it. Like it just lures you into it.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a scene where one of the first guys to die, Kashimi, I think his name is. Anyway, it sort of. It bites him and then it throws him into the pack, and then you see all of them just like fucking feasting on him and ripping him apart. Christ!
Yeah, it's like so. That's nothing like when you see it. As I said earlier, like the movie was rated MA, but it's a lot of scenes that it's kind of like threads in a way, very graphic. The visuals, like where they show the propaganda scenes where people have been wiped out, and you're seeing like dead bodies and ripped out body parts everywhere, and blood and guts and then the aliens as well. Like it's very like confrontational in that way.
Yeah, it is. I again watching it through 2025 lenses, that original landing, it almost reminded me the brutality of it. I'm like looking at it, it's like Iwo Jima or something.
Yeah, it is like that.
It's like quiet, and then it's chaos.
Was it perfect like that war trope where you see in movies, like even like as this movie came out later, but Quiet on the Western Front, they're all so excited to sign up for the military, and they're all happy and joyful, but then when the reality of war kicks in, you see like the raw brutality of it all, and then kind of like they lose a bit of their humanity in a way. I mean, in this movie, they're the characters get caught up in the moments and become part of the war machine in a way, and like they lose all their sense of identity. But you do see like it changes their personalities, and they become a lot more brutal, direct, and to the point with things.
Yeah, that's it. And it's a good point there. You talk about All Quiet on the Western Front when everyone's like so excited to go. The role that propaganda plays in it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The way it like the "Would you like to know more" segments, and even in the beginning, when it's like, oh, I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm I'm doing my part too.
They're doing their part. Are you?
Oh yeah, so I love that part.
I was watching what's the slogan the army did? Be all you can be. The US Army. And like it was like in the 80s and 90s when it turned to like that whole marketing strategy, when it started being like, oh, it's the lifestyle and you can be this and you can be that, and it's glorifying everything. And like, oh, like there's one where like, oh, you know, we get things done, most things done that the average person wouldn't do before 9 a.m. and blah blah blah. Like, oh, morning, Staff Sergeant, here's your coffee. You know, it's all this like, you know, glorification of it and stuff.
It's funny you mention that because it has the propaganda films throughout it. It has elements of that, then also Triumph for the Will by Stein. Yeah, and you see, I saw someone on YouTube, they did a comparison of the rally where they're standing and lined up, and it's exact same as the way they were.
The first scene when it zooms out?
It's the same, exact same as a Nuremberg rally, just like that symmetry it has. Yeah,
and that's the whole, he's not being subtle with the whole links to the Nazi regime.
Yeah, and everyone buying into the message, and I found it interesting too that he starts the film with the propaganda that it sets the tone for the people, like for what you're in for. You're being bombarded by all these messages and patriotism, and fighting this foreign enemy, and very like, I guess they are not human though, but you're dehumanizing them, and do your part. You're the next man up. You be all you can be in that kind of way. So yeah,
and that's cool. Like there's a lot of even. Watching some other propaganda films that came out in the Second World War was really interesting. I did a little bit out in the research for this. The US one, like Why We Fight, talking about like, why the US entered the war and the justification for doing that. And the way it's like sold to the people is like, oh, good versus evil and all this, And look, there's elements of the Second World War, I guess by today's standards, like, all right, it was more good versus evil than perhaps wars now, right? When they it's hard to find a justification these days. But the Second World War, don't get me wrong. I mean,
there's blatant racism in it.
Blatant racism. Yeah. I mean, there's two imperialistic powers, Britain and France, fighting. But saying the Nazis, you're wrong for doing this, when they've been suppressing dissent in their own empires for how long? I mean, we dropped their atomic bombs. There was a fire bombings in Dresden. There was all fucking atrocities that Russia did. Yeah, the way they carved up Poland, and they were allied.
Well, what they say, the history is written by the victors, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you get a bit more cynical. I definitely used to believe that it was good versus evil, but it was just the Russians were our friends, and it was okay,
Yeah, exactly. for about 4 or 5 years, and then it suddenly changed. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't care that 25 million of their men died. That doesn't matter. We won the war.
Exactly.
Not them. Which is bullshit, by the way. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah. Sorry, I went a bit off topic there, but I was watching these propaganda films that it was kind of influenced by, and it was really interesting. There was one that they did, Know Your Enemy.
Okay.
Have you seen that one?
No, I don't think I have.
They're talking about like the Japanese, and like they like basically dehumanizing the Japanese, like they do in the propaganda segments in Starship Troopers.
Oh, the parody of the
so it was like it was like real like racial stereotypes. Oh yeah, the average Japanese person's 5'3" and they weigh this much, and they all look alike and all this sort of stuff, and they want to kill you, and they don't know the words liberty and freedom, like all this stuff. You know what I mean? That doesn't enter their vocabulary. It's like really like trying its very hardest, like to fear them and be scared of them, sort of thing. Yeah, very interesting.
Oh, absolutely. What I found interesting at the start of the film, when they're in the classroom and with Johnny Rico, Carmen, and Dizzy, and they're studying, whatever the textbook is, and you're seeing, the UCF is sanctioned the book, that the teacher's an ex-sergeant or military person. You're seeing the flags on the wall. Even the computer program has like a little, I think it's like a parody of like Microsoft Paint or something, and it has like UCF on or something.
It's something Paint, isn't it? Yeah.
Like,
the future. Ooh.
Futuristic, yeah. Like, the 90s, it's all futuristic now, kind of thing. But everything they talk about, even saying like how even democracy was not even a good thing because
it wasn't strong enough.
It wasn't strong enough for this, and we need to bring back strength and honor and pride and those kind of endeavors, and you can see how all the classmates are all buying into it and reading about it and really getting indoctrinated and part of it, right? So,
and you can see, like, they talk about like violence. I think when Dizzy puts out, my mum always said violence never solves everything here. He said basically said, well, your mum's an idiot. It's
like, what would she know?
Yeah. You tell me violence never solved anything. I mean, like, and they talk about that. that's probably a little bit of a nod to the book with the with this take on corporal punishment and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what interesting that Paul does as a director, he makes sure that every teacher, because then the next scene is when they're dissecting one of the bugs, right, in the lab. Each teacher has a deformity from their war effort, from their service. So the sergeant at the start, he's got a missing arm.
Radshek,
Radshek got a missing arm. The teacher in the lab, she's blind. She must have got, I don't know how she would have blind, but somehow she did. And then as they go to the recruitment stations later on, each recruits, he's
missing his leg.
Missing his leg, and he goes, I was where you were one day, and you can be like me in the future. And then you see him with the disfigurements and stuff. And another thing I found interesting too, one of the other characters, I can't remember his name, but he says, because he wants to become a lawyer, but he can't afford it because he's in Harvard. And he goes, I'd give my arm and leg to get paid to go to Harvard. And then later in the film, one of the bugs cuts off his arm and leg.
Pick that up.
Yeah, picked it up. Yeah, it was like a little homage. It's like, yeah, all those little like quirks and sayings that people say, and actually comes true in that way, in a real cynical, disturbing way. So another thing too that's funny is it gets the film then switches to this like high school football scene where you're like, am I watching some heartthrob high school, one of those shitty 90s films or something?
I reckon that was purposeful. It was a piss take of like American school culture.
Yeah, they're in the ramp, people screaming the grandstand. He's the gun wide receivers, and he get catching the football.
Yeah, Johnny Rico's playing a 16-year-old, but he's 30.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then that's when he's the cliche that the guy's trying to get his girl, and he has to stand up to her and defend his honor and. Yeah, and then was it the high school prom, wasn't it, for the final scene?
Yeah.
It had all those tropes ticked one by one. It was great.
Fantastic.
I'm a sucker for one of those high school heartthrob movies, in America.
I think we all are, yeah. Very nostalgic, yeah.
I don't know what a pep rally is, but apparently it is such a thing. So it's got a couple of
Maybe
those.
some of our American viewers can tell us.
Yeah, please
listeners, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go further on, and then Johnny Rico, he comes from a rich family. His parents don't want him to go because they know he's just cannon fodder, right? So they're trying to convince him, no, don't go to the war effort. Stay here, go to Harvard, get your education, become a citizen another way, right?
It's funny though, becoming a citizen, you get the right to reproduce. So how did his parents? Did the government take over in their lifetime or something? I don't know. That's what you want to find out, right?
Yeah,
the book doesn't even tell you that. It doesn't.
But then is it implied that because they're wealthy, they bypass that stuff? Every.
Or is it just shit writing?
Maybe all the above. Could be all the above. You can see too, like Johnny Rico, he kind of feels inferior to his classmates and to his because he's a bit directionless, isn't he? A bit like he's caught up in the propaganda, but he's not really sure he wants to do it. Or
he is. It's established that he is quite open-minded. When he's sitting in the class and his teacher asks him, like, "Do you believe the text and what was said?" And he's like, "I don't know." Like he's sort of questioning. That's what I say. The book talks a lot more of him having an internal monologue.
Okay.
He's actually from the Philippines in the book. So
I heard that actually. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the important thing on the casting as well. Why they believe that they chose him. I think you were telling me before, right?
Well, from what I've read, that apparently, Paul basically he wanted actors that were really good looking, like model looking kind of people, semi decent actors, but not great actors, because he felt that it'd be more believable if they were kind of semi shit. That the propaganda would make more sense to it. Where it brings. Because you seen apparently Matt Damon was meant to be in it originally, right? He was one of the
Matt Damon and Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, not Donnie D.
Donnie D could have been on the backup, but I reckon Marky Mark was probably busy with the Funky Bunch at the time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Oh,
Funky Bunch has to take priority.
Well, he could have been in jail then. We don't talk about that.
Yeah. Sorry, I took you way off topic.
Yeah, that's all right. I got no sidetrack. Bit of good vibrations were going on there.
Yeah.
But he did that on purpose to kind of drive home where it felt like a propaganda film as opposed to an actual realistic war effort film. Because if the actors aren't like a 9 out of 10, they're more of a 7 out of 10. You kind of believe the propaganda in a way. Like you can see it as propaganda.
Yeah, like they're suckers for it.
Suckers for it. Yeah, and then they fit the perfect role where you'd see some recruit agency playing that as like to kind of lure fucking idiots into become part of it.
Yeah, well, that's like true sort of military recruitment tactics and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at the actor Casper Van Dien, like, he is Mr. I am a straight male, but he's a very good looking man. So
he's not a bad looking man.
He's got very dreamy eyes, beautiful hair. So
looks good in the uniform.
He does. And then on the opposite end, then you got Denise Richards and Dina Meyer, and they're very, obviously of that way as well. So you can see why they picked those actors.
Yes, they actually did a really good job with casting. Yeah.
And ironically enough, the kind of like the side character Neil Patrick Harris is probably the most famous actor out of them all now. So it's funny how that happens. Yeah,
it is. He would have only really done Doogie Howser or that before then. I can't remember if he was in anything before that.
Yeah, because he's a kid actor, and then he might have done a couple of other things. I don't really know much too about him, to be honest. But
you don't really see many kid actors do anything after, do they? They only end up sort of
going off the deep end a bit.
They do. I think Edward Furlong and Jake Lloyd,
Amanda Bynes, things like that. Well, that's a topic for another day. But yeah.
Well done, Neil.
Yeah, good on you, Neil.
Yeah.
Thanks for proving them wrong. So So we get to the stage then where they sign up. Carmen's she's really pro her career, right? She wants to become part of the military. Johnny Rico's still in love with her, and he just kind of he said he was a bit indecisive, but then he decides to follow her because he kind of sees a bit of the patriotism behind it, but then also he wants to follow Carmen as well because she might make a career out of it. But the issue is he wasn't as smart as she was, so she goes to the space unit, the aircraft unit.
She becomes a pilot. It's funny how it shows the military hierarchy because it's like that now with like the Air Force and the infantry and everyone's this real hierarchy. I'm like, oh yeah, you cannon fodder and where
exactly He goes to a battle platoon that was called
mobile infantry.
Mobile infantry, that's it. Yeah. So he's assigned there, and Neil Patrick Harris's character goes to the intelligence agency. So that's where that's like what the CIA or something like kind of
pretty much. Reference. Yeah, it's funny they don't talk about the whole psychic thing in the book. It's not a thing.
Interesting.
But in again, I think it's a piss take of that whole Cold War thing. With America and the Soviet Union and America looking at that. We talked about.
We touched on Nikira.
Yeah, like their telekinesis stuff. It's probably a bit of a piss take with that as well.
Yeah, I always when I think the telekinesis, I always think of the South Park episode when they're doing the battles, that stuff. Better than the man. Nice, yeah. And these mum drops like, it's a bit like that. So we go to the next point then, the recruitment station, and then they go to the training camp. That's when the movie really starts to kick into gear, and you're starting to see the stereotypes of the drill sergeant and he's breaking people's arms and stand up, shoulder, ease up, and who said that kind of
all those tropes,
taking a piss out of a bit of Full Metal Jacket, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and that's where we see. That's when then Dizzy joins, and he's like, "Oh, why did you follow me, Dizzy? You're just copying. You just want. I don't love you, but we're just friends. We're going to stay as friends, kind of thing." So, and then it ventures into Rico gets more confident. He's one of the star recruits. He's making his way, he becomes like one of the leaders in
he becomes a squad leader.
Yeah.
Then he obviously makes the error. He gets someone takes his helmet off. He gets shot. And then he's about to leave, and then. Before he can, the supposed bug attack on...
one of the pivotal points of the movie.
Buenos Aires, where there's there was a...
Those terrorists, they got him.
Yeah, an asteroid attack. There's a big community out there on YouTube that actually think that was a false flag incident.
Surely not.
Oh, well.
I don't believe it.
It's funny, though, like the rabbit hole you go down. The book sort of goes into a bit more detail in it, and the bugs or the arachnids are a lot more intelligent in the book. They talk about like a hive mind, and they actually colonize other planets and all that sort of thing. In the book, whereas I guess in the movie they're more just there they're just there for the plot. They're just there to be an enemy, right?
Exactly. They need something.
They need something slaughtered. Yeah, but that's on purpose, right? Because every authoritarian regime or militaristic society needs an enemy, and that's what they are, right?
It is funny because you talk about how much the propaganda plays such a big role in it. On one hand, they're this, stupid, dumb bugs. They're a hive mind. They need to be slaughtered. They're just, they're Neanderthal creatures just want to slaughter humans. But on the other hand, they're so sophisticated that they could figure out to send a comet just on the right angle in the right direction, trillions of light years away, just to hit planet Earth perfectly without it being detected as well.
Yeah,
from an advanced society with spaceships around and stuff. So
that's it. Yeah, I believe I'm one of the believers. I reckon it was a false flag incident because this militaristic society needed a justification to go.
Cue the X-File music, mate.
And it got me thinking. I'm looking at some other false flag incidents that mirror in real life.
Oh, interesting. Go into it.
Yeah. You think of we think of the Gleiwitz incident in 1939. So obviously, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland, they attacked like a radio station. So they got like concentration camp prisoners. They dressed them up in Polish uniforms, killed them, but made it look like, oh, we had no choice. We had to attack them. Oh, we've got to invade Poland now. So it was at the start of the war. There was something called the Mukden incident in 1931, so the Japanese invasion of Manchuria. They basically just put explosive on a stretch of railway, blew it up, and the Chinese are both, we have to invade,
No choice, yeah.
It was an attack. I mean, the Gulf of Tonkin, the justification for the Vietnam War, right?
Yeah,
would be a massive one. A lot of people don't really look into this one as much, but when the US had claimed that the North Vietnamese patrol boats had attacked them on the 2nd of August in 1964, which indeed they had, but the US shouldn't have been there. We're sort of doing covert operations in like North Vietnamese waters. On the 4th, they said they were attacked, but it turns out that they weren't. It was like miscommunication between the intelligence. But Lyndon Johnson sort of used it as a bit of a justification anyway. Well, that's it. No choice. We've got to go to war. You could, there's countless examples. I mean, the Soviets, when they invaded Finland in the second, it's like to start the Winter War, probably another war a lot of people don't think about in the Second World War, do they?
No, it's fun.
When they were, the village of it's called Maynila, there's a shelling. So the Soviet Union actually shelled that village. It was on the border of like Soviet and Finnish territory. And that was the justification for Stalin. So they sort of Soviet shelled it. They blamed on the Finnish, and they thought, we got to go now. There's a justification. We have to invade them. We got to protect ourselves,
Mm.
And who could forget the 2003 invasion of Iraq? Was that a false flag incident?
Oh, those weapons of mass destruction that they magically disappeared when they got there.
That's
very unlucky.
Yeah, I mean, even like George Bush sort of tricking the populace into like linking it to like the war on terror, but not saying it wasn't. Hang on, I thought it was Afghanistan.
I thought we were fighting the Taliban and Al Qaeda.
He really sort of.
What's Saddam got to do with it? Yeah. It's funny how it kind of predicted, like a lot of those tropes that came out later in American culture and the vibe around the country after 9/11. Well, the thing when you're going to false flags too, I don't believe the conspiracy, but some people think that 9/11 was a false flag, and I can kind of see the logic behind it, but I just personally don't believe it. But
look, that's another podcast, and we could get very controversial. But for the same reason, now you would even think of you mentioned it before when we weren't recording. Pearl Harbor.
Well, yeah, it was with Pearl. This is another point of the asteroid attack. Or the meteor, whatever it is, because it's kind of like one of those things where we're talking about a false flag, where that's where they purposely organised this catastrophe to happen to justify something. This is more on the verge of a catastrophe is coming our way, whether it's caused by another entity or just by nature or something.
Let's just make the most of it.
Perfect. But this is the best. This is a great opportunity now to take advantage of this and use it as a reason to do B over here, as opposed to what A's happened. So, during World War II, the rumor goes is that before Pearl Harbor happened, the American intelligence agency and the president himself, FDR,
Franklin Churchill knew as well.
And
supposedly,
they knew about the impending attack, so they could have. I mean, it's still, I don't know if they could have stopped it, but they could have definitely put more defensive barriers up and, preempted it better. So they could, not many people, lives would have been lost, because during that time too, America was very anti-war. They did not want to be caught up in another European war again.
Well, I think the populace were, Roosevelt knew that they would have to. He knew that. He couldn't.
He knew Hitler was basically a maniac, and it was eventually going to be war. But the problem was, when you're an elected official, you got to follow what the people want.
Yeah, well, he's no good when he's out of office, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and also too, it struck and he knew too that the war effort would get them out of the Great Depression properly. It was already heading that way, but that was what drove it over.
Massive conflict of interest in there, the military-industrial complex. See?
Yeah, it is. And the crazy thing is too. I never realised this, but just 30 days after Pearl Harbor, 130,000 Americans signed up to the military. So it was a perfect recruitment thing. It gave America the military a common enemy that they all round about, and then people were getting more patriotic and wanted to be part of the war effort. And then within a year of Pearl Harbor, over 50 million Americans were part of the war effort. So whether it's being in the manufacturing, military.
Fantastic
ops
for
background.
fantastic for the economy. Right?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
And that's where you say the military-industrial complex just grows out of that. People are like, well, hang on, there's a bit of money in this.
Yeah, well, that's where industries are born, and things get. Yeah, then there's unlimited spending and budgets, and it gets out of control. Yeah.
Well, I say, and look, is it so hard to believe? Now we've talked about 9/11. Is it so hard to believe? Now, not that way. Would I ever think that was orchestrated? But could they think, let's not? We kind of need a war. There hasn't been one for a little while. Let's maybe let it's. Look, I can see why people would think that, right? Because there's a lot of incidents in the past that have led to things, and it was a lot more cynical now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hence why, ironically, this movie is now a cult classic, whereas in the 90s,
it was kind of panned, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was a less cynical time.
Yeah.
Therefore.
It came out at the wrong time, right? It didn't capture the zeitgeist of what was going on.
Yeah, victim of its time.
Yeah. Well, they always say the 90s was like kind of the last great decade, right? For
the end of history.
The end of history wasn't after the war, for all the Berlin Wall and things like that. So, but yeah, well, back to some more of the dystopian themes throughout it. So, I guess a lot of it's got to do with what we were saying earlier, where with the war, they need a common enemy all the time. It's this perpetual war. It's never ending. It's like it's always they got to find another reason, another justification, another cause for it to continue on and get more troops involved, more meat to the grinder, right? For these people to keep going on. So it's that the society's just built around this conglomerate entity, right? Isn't it? It's this war effort. Yeah, it's just 100% all. That's all it thinks and cares about.
And look, we'll play it here, but one of the videos, the propaganda videos at the end, that I think encapsulates it really well. We'll let that play here.
We have the ships. We have the weapons. We need soldiers. Soldiers like Lieutenant Stack Lumbridge.
We're in the target area now, Captain.
And Captain Carmen Ibanez.
This is the captain speaking. All personnel prepare for drop.
Soldiers like Private Ace Levy and Lieutenant John Rico.
Come on, you if you want to live forever!
We need you all. Service guarantees citizenship.
Yeah, so there you have that. What I really like about that is like seeing it again in 2025 lenses when it talks about the ending of it. We need you. Like, we've got the weapons, we've got the ships, but we need you. Enlist now. We'll fight and we'll win. And like but it's so you can be like Carmen Ibanez, who's the she's the captain of this ship. You can be like Ace. You can be like Johnny Rico. It's kind of like. It's almost a sad ending in the sense that, like...
No, it's a very... I found that... And the thing is, too, they don't capture the bug at the end. It's the random drill sergeant at the start who becomes a private again.
Zim, yeah.
Zim. He was apparently based on some US sergeant in World War II, decided to quit his post and joined his infantrymen again. I think he was given, like, some kind of office job or something, so he decided to... de-rank himself, become a private, so he could be amongst the battle, and he loved the action, the war, and wanted to be part of it again. So
loved the smell of napalm in the morning.
He did. Yeah.
Probably a war too soon, but same thing.
Kind of thing. So that's where it was kind of inspired by. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So it's these little details. This film goes to so much lengths about incorporating things that happened in real life and putting it into this movie.
Yeah. There's like all in the name of satire, and I appreciate that. The length that it goes, like it just I love the double narrative in this film. I love that, like, it just makes you think, and it lulls you into sort of really loving these characters and then wondering why you're also rooting for like an authoritarian regime. Like, everything about it is just, I don't know, it's got to be up there as one of my favorite films now. I think probably top 10, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's a great film. I wouldn't say it's my top 10, but it's in my I'd say top 20, 30 films. Like, it is a masterpiece. But before we wrap up, I just also want to say, like, there's so, besides like the dystopian themes, like it's very creative filmmaking where there's so many little subtleties here and there, like little elements where you're questioning the motives of some of the characters. Where I noticed when the sergeant, the teacher, loses his arm. I always forget his name. Sorry, Rashad. He has an affinity for Johnny Rico, and he sends the leader of the squadron towards the mountain area where the bugs are. That part where they're near that defense area on the planet.
Yeah.
So and you see the part in the movie too where the rocks are starting to rumble. So and he saw that, and then they had point making sure he saw that. Then yet he still sent those men up there. Is it kind of like, did he do that on purpose, knowing that they get killed, so he could put Johnny Rico as in command, or was it just an error? But that's what I love about it. You don't know. It has these little subtleties and little implications here and there. So it's kind of like, it's like the false flag thing. Is it a false flag, or is it just a government taking opportunity of an event that's popped up? So yeah, all these little subtleties it has, and everything. There's a thought. And there's a process behind every aspect of the film. Nothing's there. Nothing's done by accident. It's all calculated on purpose. And it wants to evoke these different thoughts and emotions out of you as the viewer, and to make you think about things and get caught up in the propaganda, and kind of show how we all could fall for it under the right circumstance.
Well, yeah. I mean, you look at citizens in the 30s in Italy and Germany, right? The conditions were right for someone to come in and a strong leader and spouting sort of all this propaganda and blaming someone, and it was all there. It was just like people wanted a quick fix, and the conditions were right? Yeah. And same with this. Funnily enough, we were talking about at the start, this was quite heavily panned in Italy and Germany when it came out.
I wonder why.
Yeah. So, and that's what he said it, like in these, it wouldn't have been, 50 years on from the war. It would have still been quite fresh in the memory. A lot of these people would have been alive.
Oh, I think a lot of the time their heads are in the sand about that stuff. We don't talk about that.
Yeah,
they kind of
too close to home.
What is it? Because it's funny. When I went to Europe last year and did a tour of Germany, you could sense that now. It's because the old generation was, we don't talk about it. We don't want to recognize it. I'm saying it never happened, but it's just not part of our consciousness. But the younger generation, and they're kind of like, no, you have to recognize and kind of own it and then move forward. Because if you just got your head in the sand, you're not, it's just nothing gets solved. It keeps being a wound underneath, right? So it has kind of those parallels to it. So
victim of its time.
Yeah,
the movie was definitely a victim of its time.
Another thing too, it felt like Halo, doesn't it? The video game, maybe I assume that there would have been some inspirations from it, because even the helmets, the guns, and the ships as well. It's like flying a Pelican.
Yeah. It would have. I mean, and influences like Alien.
It would have been a valid factor too. Yeah.
Fallout, something they make a lot of talk about in the book, but not the movie. All the soldiers wear power armor. So it's
that's so cool.
Yeah, but that was one of the
Brotherhood of Steel stuff.
Yeah. That was one of the biggest submissions from the book to the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as a lover of the franchise, would you recommend to me any of the other films in the series, the direct-to-video ones?
Maybe the third.
Okay.
The second one takes all the humor out of it.
So it's not like Terminator 2 or something, is it?
Nah, it's a bit. Nah, definitely not. No. It's a bit more serious, which kind of misses the point completely.
Does the head go a bit up its own ass? Does it?
A little bit up its own ass. But in the third one, the writer actually comes back in. So the same writer of the first one came into it. His name keeps escaping me, and I actually watched an interview with him, and he was talking about Edward Newmer is his name. Okay. Edward Newmer is his name. Sorry, I had to mention his name in there because I forgot it earlier.
Yeah, well, he's a big part of it, right?
He returned for the third, so it kind of had a few of the themes.
And they brought back in the actors, didn't they, for the third
Johnny
one?
Rico was in the third, I know that much.
Yeah, poor old Casper. I think he was looking for another paycheck, wasn't he?
Yeah, funny, his career, yeah.
I think that was the peak of his career. I think you see...
Oh, what a movie,
I mean, if you're going to have one peak movie, that's a pretty good one to have. I think you can kind of tell when those actors, you see them at conventions and stuff, and they're still like, oh, I'm Johnny Rico. You're like, oh, okay, I can see where your career path went. I'm sure he's a good, nice bloke, but interesting. Apparently, I was reading his daughter is now a famous streamer on Twitch.
Yeah, okay.
So she's and it's funny. She kind of looks exactly like him as well. I'm like, oh yeah, you're definitely.
Imagine being Johnny Rico's daughter.
Oh, what an honor.
Yeah. And we have a remake coming.
Do we?
The Starship Troopers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I sent you that, didn't I? Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I saw, ironically enough, when we were planning the episode, I saw a post came up on my news feed on Facebook, and I'm like, but I wonder what kind of direction it will go, though. I hope it's kind of a good time to bring out a film like this, because I think people would have a better understanding of it. But then, at the same time, I'm so sick of bloody remakes these days. There's too many.
I mean, it's pretty safe hands. Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9, which is a hell of a film. We should actually do that down the line. That fills me with some hope, but I don't know if we actually need a remake.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm very anything 2015 onwards, I'm very cynical about if it's good or not. So it's very rare there's a good movie out in these days, I find. Especially blockbuster movies.
This was never too preachy. Starship Troopers was never preachy.
That's actually a good point you're bringing up. That like it's when I'm watching the characters, I don't feel like it's trying to ram home these messages to me. Like it lets me decide what I want to take out of it and what I think it's trying to say, as opposed to being like, no, you're a bad person, you should be thinking this way. Where I feel like a lot of films in the same kind of vein as Starship Troopers try and beat it down your throat and tell you and preach a message to you.
Well, you think the character of Carmen, who, well, obviously she was in it because she was a love interest. In the book, she's in it for not even a chapter. So there's no real mention of her. In this, she's the love interest of Johnny Rico because obviously Hollywood loves a love interest, Yeah. But she breaks up with him and she wants to pursue a career and stuff like that, and actually shows like a strong woman character, but it's not being preachy about it. No,
it's done very well. And then, like in this, ironically, in this bloody fascist authoritarian society, like men and women are pretty equal. Like they're both in all that famous shower scene, right, where they're all naked and they're all sharing the same. And there's no kind of like sexual reference.
Everyone's equal. We're all fighting. Like
we're all soldiers here. We're having a shower. That's it. Yeah.
And that's like I think it's like we're human. It's the human race now. We're all mates. But now we've got a common enemy.
There. It's like taking, instead of being racism, it's gone to speciesism in a way.
Pretty much, yeah.
Another thing before we go to is, apparently I was reading that during that shower scene, a lot of the actors felt uncomfortable doing it because, male, female, and they're all about 6 or 7 of them in one area naked. Apparently the director, Paul, decided to strip off all his clothes too to make them more comfortable, saying like, look, I understand it's not comfortable, but I'll get naked too.
Yeah, what a legend.
Yeah, he's dedicated to his art, so I really appreciate that.
Definitely is. Look, one more thing before we go, because I didn't quite finish what I was going to say before on the ending. I got sidetracked, as quite often happens here.
Yeah, we always go down these really weird rabbit holes, don't we?
But the ending, I think, is a really powerful one in the sense, we played the video before, but the propaganda, you can be like Carmen, you can be like Johnny Rico, you can be like Ace. These guys that kind of like came through school, and it kind of showed that Johnny Rico was a little bit open-minded, and he was questioning the text and stuff like that. He's just now joined the military-industrial complex, and he's just another cog in the war machine. He's the famous line at the end, "Come on, you apes, you want to live forever?" Yeah. And he's just, it's kind of like, it's just this forever war now. He's just...
He's completely dehumanized now, isn't he?
He's dehumanized. He's just sort of, this is the real world. You have all these ideas. It makes me think of, the shit you're at school, the things you wanted to be, the things you wanted to do, and the world seems so idealistic, and then you sort of get into it, and
your spirit gets beaten down, and then in this world, like the realities of war, and like seeing a lot of his friends and fellow military people killed off as well. It's got to affect you down the track,
Yeah, and this is it now. He's now
desensitized to it, and it's come this warm.
He's now used as like a hero to sort of get the next lot of people through,
Yeah, until he dies, Yeah,
until he does.
Another one.
It leaves me thinking, like, cynical. Like, am I doing both? Am I doing what I thought I wanted to do when I was a kid, and that sort of thing? No, but what other choices is there now? It's just the world that we live in, and we've got to make money. We've got to do what we got to do. It leaves you thinking that, right? Sort of like it's kind of a good analogy for all that. Well, we have we're past the hour mark here, so let's wrap that one up. Is there anything you wanted to add?
No, just as I said earlier, as a kid, I thought it was just a cool action film with a lot of blood and guts and gore and cool sequences and scenes. But yeah, as watching it as an adult, like proper in my early mid-30s, like you really appreciate the message behind it and the subtleties and what we always love about the dystopian themes that it incorporates. So no, as I said, we said earlier, it's a bit of a masterpiece, and it's in your top 10 films, in my top 20 films.
Yeah, real work of art. Yeah, as I said once or twice, the victim of its time, but just it kind of makes it even better now. The fact it's a cult classic.
It's funny too. If you mention to someone that Starship Troopers would be in your top 10, people would be like, "What? Why would you think that's stupid?" But then I know they've really taken in the meaning and message behind it. They wouldn't understand the subtleties of it.
Yeah, I just think it's just that double narrative and how provoking and how ballsy it is. I really appreciate that,
Yeah, I think we said this before. Like, it definitely was the victim of its time, where it just came out at not the right time for it. And it's and we keep saying every episode, it seems like it's more relevant in 2025 than it is back in '97.
What's that say about now?
Yeah, scary times.
Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, so what can we expect in next week's episode, Andrew?
Shit, I did this last week. What can we expect? I don't know.
Oh, we're going into Ray Bradbury's territory now. We're doing a little short novel he did called There Will Come Soft Rains. So
You've talked to me about this before, but I've never read this. So
yeah, so it's just like it's basically in the nuclear apocalypse, post-apocalyptic times, where an automated house is still running its natural cycle despite no one being around. So it delves into that and explores a lot of different dystopian themes and attributes. So it's a bit creepy and a bit eerie. So we're looking forward to another short novel, and we seem to be liking these short novels, don't we?
Yeah. I enjoy exploring them and researching them.
And it's kind of one we're both going fresh into as well. We've never seen it, really read it before, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah, so that will wrap up this week's episode of Dystopedia, Starship Troopers, episode number 7. As always, guys, please catch us up on follow us on our Instagram page at Dystopedia Pod, and you can send us an email at info@dystopediapodcast.com. I got it right this week.
That's the one.
And yeah, as always, too, feel free to rate us on your favourite platform, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Podbean, we're all on all those ones. 5-star, 1-star, we don't mind, as long as you're giving us feedback and letting us know how you're feeling about the show, what direction you'd like to see it go in, and if you've got any recommendations too, please reach out. We're happy to. I would like to see an episode a viewer gives us and we go into it completely blind. It'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, so that wraps us up. So we'll catch you next week, guys. See you then.
All right, see ya.